All right. Today we're going to be talking about Finland. So we're going to be closing up on the Scandinavian countries up there. We've done Iceland, we've done Norway and Sweden, and now we have Finland. This is the Finnish flag. This one has a nice effect to it to kind of make it look pretty, but it's just blue and white. You have that blue cross on it. And Finland is going to be again one of the last Scandinavian countries that we look up. It's sometimes called a Nordic country. It has Nordic roots or Norse roots. It's in Northern Europe. Part of it will be above the Arctic Circle, part of it's below, so it's subarctic and Arctic. It will have some tundra, some permafrost, and some of the other things that we've been talking about with the other countries. Finland is the 8th largest country in the European Union. And so it, unlike some of the other Scandinavian nations, is part of the European Union. It's the 8th largest country. It only has about 5.5 million people, which makes it the most sparsely populated country in the European Union. So while it's one of the bigger countries, there's not a whole bunch of people who live there because it's cold all the time. And there's lots of mountains and lots of trees. So it's very, very rural, or very sparsely populated, we should say. Finland has a parliamentary republic. We'll talk more about how that all works later. It has the central government located in Helsinki, which is the capital. We'll see that when we look at some maps. And it's a very prosperous city. In fact, in 2010, Newsweek rated Finland as the best country in the world. Now, I mean, obviously, the United States wasn't included in that because clearly it would be the U.S., but rated as the best country in the world. We're going to pay attention to some of the geography later, maybe some biodiversity, from some economy, some politics, some similar things we've been looking at, and we're going to look at some countryside pictures of Finland just because they're very, very pretty. It's a gorgeous place. You can see the northern lights there. You can see them in the other countries. But one of the reasons why people will travel to Finland in order to, go on touristy vacations and things like that is because the northern lights are especially delicious there. They're beautiful. People like to go see them, and they like to watch them. One of the national songs, not the anthem, I don't believe, but one of the national songs of Finland, or the national song of Finland, is called Finlandia. It's by Jean Sibelius. It's Be Still My Soul, if you've ever heard the hymn. Be still my soul, the Lord is on your side. That one, that's Finlandia, by Jean Sibelius. And so we're going to just look at some things about Finland. Cool facts about Finland: in World War II, the Finnish obliterated the Russians when they attacked them. Russia invaded with 1 million men, and Finland kind of slapped them around and said, go home. It was devastating combat, but this little country that everybody thought would just crumple underneath the weight of the Soviet Union was able to repel them and push them back. So lesson, don't mess with the Finns. They will hurt you. Also, in 1906, Finland became the very first country in the world to grant full suffrage to all citizens, yes, even including women. 1906. So the very first country to give the vote, where voting was even possible, but the very first country to give the vote, to give suffrage to everybody in the country, including women, was Finland, 1906. Okay, so let's look at our map. These two images should be on the website for you guys to print off and look at. One is pretty, I guess they're both pretty, but one kind of shows the surrounding countries, and one would probably be easier to look at so you can see the different territories, and you don't have to worry about all those different cities or municipalities. It looks like there's a bunch, but remember there's only 5.5 million people in the whole country, and a lot of them live down around the Helsinki area, so down here in the south. Southern Finland, because it's really cold up there, and so a lot of people live down here in the south. You can see over on this other map these nice pretty countries or pretty territories laid out for us. We're not going to have a map quiz on Finland, but what I would like you guys to do with the time that you have left after class today, or after lecture today, we're not going to lecture for very long. We're just going to kind of cover the basic facts for Finland because I want you guys to get a project done. I want you to go and redesign the Finnish flag. So that white field with the blue sideways cross on it, as a class, I want you guys to kind of collaborate and redesign the flag for Finland. You can do it on the whiteboard, you can do it on a piece of paper, but I want somebody to take a picture of it and text it to me tomorrow at the end of class. So you're going to have some time during class to redesign the Finnish flag, and that's what we're going to start looking at some of the information about Finland now, so you guys can get ready to do that. All right, when we're talking about the biodiversity and the climate of Finland and the geography, when we think about the Scandinavian countries, we think of the Scandinavian mountains over in Sweden and Norway. Finland has some mountains, because they're part of that Scandinavian range, but by and large, Finland is flat relative compared to those other Scandinavian countries. It's almost like somebody came along with a big rolling ball or rolling roller and just flattened it. It's a lot of flat. There's a few hills. There's not very many mountains. There's some, but not very many. And one interesting feature of Finland is that it is loaded with lakes and islands. There's 188,000 lakes, more than 188,000 lakes. There's 179,000 islands. Remember we talked about how Japan has a little more than 6,000, and we were like, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, Finland has 179,000 islands. That's a lot of islands. The greatest concentration of the islands is found in the southwest region of the nation, of the archipelago. And so you look down here and you can see there's going to be a bunch of islands down in this direction. That's what we're talking about. 179,000 islands. You might want to remember that. Could be on a quiz. Okay, like we said, there are a few mountains. The tallest mountain is about 4,300 feet above sea level, or 4,300 feet high, and it is at the northern part of Finland, northern part of Lapland. And so as you go north, you're going to get higher in elevation because that's up towards the Scandinavian mountains where they're going to touch. The geography of Finland is going to create a lot of opportunity for biodiversity, for a lot of diversity of the fauna and the flora. And so when we think about it, what we're going to see is we're going to find that there are basically regions within Finland. There's 3 climactic regions. There's going to be the very, very cold part. There's going to be the mixed forests, and there's going to be the grasslands. So you have the Arctic part, the mixed forests, which means there's going to be a variety of trees. And then as you go further south, you're going to have the grasslands. So because of this, because there's 3 different regions or distinct regions in Finland, there's going to be quite a bit of biodiversity. It's not like a one-stop, it is like a one-stop shop where you have all the different places that all these different animals might want to live. There are 60 native mammalian species. So out of there are other things that live there now that weren't native, but there are 60 native mammalian species. Lots of them like cold, because again, this is going to be a cold, temperate climate, or a temperate climate like the other Scandinavian countries. It's going to be a little bit colder because it's further inland, away from the Gulf Stream. So as you move inland or you move away from the Gulf Stream, it's going to get colder and colder. Remember, it's warmer in Norway than it is in Russia. And Russia is going to border Finland, and it's going to be colder in Russia than in Norway because Norway has the Gulf Stream. So Finland will be a little bit warmer than Russia, but not very much. When we think about the animals, some of the more popular animals from Finland are the brown bear. The brown bear is Finland's national animal. So when you make the flag in a little while, you might want to consider maybe doing something with the brown bear. Also, there are quite a few different species of freshwater fish, like pike. There are several different types of pike, in particular northern pike. There are perch, and there are Atlantic salmon. One of the most common things for people to do when they go travel to Finland on tourist expeditions is to do some fly fishing for Atlantic salmon. Cool fact about fishing for salmon: when they're coming back from the ocean to their rivers, you don't actually put bait on your hook when you fish for salmon. When they're swimming up the rivers to go spawn, you just throw your hook out and you drag it across, and your goal is to kind of foul hook the salmon in his mouth as they're swimming up the stream. You want to catch your string in his mouth as he's going along, because they don't eat when they're going up the river to spawn, and so you just kind of hope that you're going to be able to snag one as they're going along. That's pretty much all we're going to talk about with the animals. You can go online if you want, and you can look up Finland, and you can look at all the different types of animals that are there. Basically, what we're more concerned with is the geography and how the geography affects the types of animals. It has wide biodiversity and wide diversity in flora because of those distinct regions. It gives them a lot of different opportunities to find habitat that's suitable for them. Okay, the climate in Finland. One of the main factors in Finland's climate is its geological or geographical position. It's pretty far north, which means it's going to be pretty cold. All of Finland lies in the boreal zone, which means it's going to have cold winters, freezing winters, and fairly warm summers. It's going to be kind of temperate because it's close to the Gulf Stream, but it's not directly influenced by it. So it's going to have a somewhat temperate climate in the southern regions, but as you get to the extreme north, it's going to be very, very cold. Part of it again will be part of the Arctic. It'll be below or inside the Arctic Circle. A quarter of Finland's territory lies inside the Arctic Circle, and again, so they're going to have that issue where part of the year you have like 24 hours of daylight, and part of the year you have 24 hours of darkness. The sun typically during the summer does not set for 73 days during the summer. So there's 73 straight days where the sun does not set, and during the winter time there are 51 days where the sun doesn't rise at all. And so it's not even going to be the little, kind of light dusk thing that we were talking about that happens in Alaska. This is going to be straight darkness for 51 days. So 73 days of light during summer, the sun does not set. 51 days of darkness during the winter. When we begin to talk about these different regions in Finland, there are 19 different regions. You can look up here at our map again. There are going to be 19 different regions that in Finland are called something like maakunta, which is like an administrative region, or like a county or so. And so not really a state. They're just regional administration agencies. And so it's a way to kind of govern the people without creating different states. There's 19 of them, and you can see them here throughout the map. And the most populous regions are down here again. Here's Helsinki, the capital. There's Helsinki right there off the Gulf of Finland, the Baltic Sea. So you're going to have Germany and other countries once you start heading down in this direction. These different administrative agencies are every once in a while they're kind of redrawn or redone. And the last time it looks like was in 2010 when they did this. And so these administrative divisions are going to be primarily divided by municipalities. So you'll have a big city in one, and that'll be centered around that large city. Kind of like Dallas County has Dallas in it, and Tarrant County has Fort Worth, and Bexar County has San Antonio. You kind of have a big city. Harris County's got Houston. These big cities that make up these different administrative regions in Finland. And probably one of the reasons why they do it that way is because there's just not a lot of people. There's 5.5 million people for the 8th largest country in the European Union, so that winds up telling you that it's very, very sparsely populated. Helsinki, again, is the largest city. There are roughly 625,000 people that live in Helsinki, and so that's a pretty good-sized city, but it's not a huge city. And so, again, it can't be huge because there's only 5.5 million people who live there. When we talk about the politics of Finland, they have a constitution, and they are a democracy, and in particular a parliamentary democracy, and they're going to have a prime minister. So there's no king in Finland. It's pretty neat. The other Scandinavian countries all have a king. but not Finland. They have a president, and they're elected constitutionally, and they have the prime minister. The president is the head of state, and the prime minister is the head of the government. That's our executive and legislative branches. They just name them differently over there. There's a unicameral parliament, again, one house. They don't have representatives and senators. They just have representatives. So there's a unicameral parliament, and the parliament will then elect the prime minister, and the prime minister is the head of the government. Again, we mentioned before, universal suffrage, right to vote, 1906. Very first country in the world to allow women to vote. So if you want to go to a socially progressive place to visit, hang out, that'd be cool. That's kind of what Finland is. Some long-term trends in the country's politics is that they're a social democratic country, so they tend to be very liberal. They're going to have some similar things like the other Scandinavian countries, where education will be paid for. The government's going to play a big role in people's lives, so they're going to pay lots of taxes. Simply because the government controls everything. When the government controls it, it just gets kind of expensive as far as taxes are concerned. That's pretty much what we're going to talk about as far as Finland is concerned. I guess we need to talk about their economy a little bit. Finland is a highly industrialized economy with per capita income that's pretty much equal to other countries, and so they're not really rich, they're not really poor, they're not like Norway, who is loaded in cash, richest country in the world, but they do okay. A lot of their income, over half of their income, is based on trade with other countries. Finland has traditionally been among free trade supporters, so anytime somebody says we want to have free trade, we don't want to have imposed regulations on things like that. That's something that Finland has always been known for. The forests of Finland play a key role in its economy. They can provide raw materials. They can do other things with the wood, and so it's a very important part of their country, a very important part of their economy. The employment rate for Finland is 68%. It's pretty good. The unemployment rate was only 6.8%, and that means that there's a lot of people who are not of working age. And so pretty low unemployment rate, 6.8%. I think the last time I checked, the unemployment rate for Texas was 6.9%. So currently they would have a lower unemployment rate than the state of Texas, which is pretty impressive because the economy is doing really well in Texas as compared to other parts of the country. So the fact that they have a lower unemployment rate than Texas means that they're doing something right over there. Just like the other countries, they're going to have some geothermal power, and they're going to produce a lot of their own power. 31% of their production is done by renewable resources, so that'll be wind, solar, geothermal, wave production, and so a lot of what they do is going to be produce energy, so they're going to export a lot of that. As far as transport goes, because they're so far up north, they're going to have to do, and sailing and fishing is going to be a big part of their economy, because up until 1950s they were mostly agrarian, which means they did a lot of farming. There wasn't much technology, wasn't other things. So up until 1950 they're a mostly agrarian economy, which means in the past 50 years they've had to do a lot of shifting. They've done a pretty good job of it, but most of their exports are going to be related in some way to their the natural countryside of the country, either from the waters, from fishing, things like that, or from their forests or other things. And so Finland is a very beautiful place. People will go there to see the aurora borealis, to see what it's like to live in the best country, just to go visit it, and so it's kind of neat. Some of the languages that are spoken in Finland, they're going to speak Finnish, obviously, some Swedish. There is English spoken there, but it's not an official language, is my understanding. And so Swedish, Finnish, Swedish, Finnish, and English are going to be some of the languages that are spoken there. Finnish and Swedish are the official languages. That's what I had in my notes. Finnish and Swedish are the official languages. Okay, so what I would like for you guys to do now is get out some paper, start brainstorming, throw some ideas together, figure out what you want to do as far as your flag is concerned, because the white and blue, maybe it works, maybe not, we'll see. Before we go, talk about the religion in Finland. So they're going to have Lutheranism is going to be their primary religion. 75% of all the people in Finland are part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland. In the United States, we have the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the ELCA. Over in Finland, they have the ELCF. It's kind of neat. So the Evangelical Lutheran Church is going to be the state organization, the state religion that's part of Norway. In 2012, 75% of children were baptized. 82% had been confirmed. And so there's a decrease in the number of baptisms, but not like the other countries. The Evangelical Lutheran Church is still going strong. There are other religions that are growing, mostly Christian religions, but they're not growing very quickly. In fact, there were more people in other churches 10 years ago than there are people in other churches today in Finland. Most people who have some kind of religion are going to be members of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland. And remember, they do not have freedom of religion over there the way that we do. And so there's going to be some rules because the government and religion work together. So they don't have separation of church and state is what we should say. People in Finland live to be about 85 years old, so they have a pretty high life expectancy. The average person will live to be about 85 years old, and it's probably because of all the fish they eat and the other good things that they have. And so that's going to be all the information that we're going to go over today. Make sure and do your map. Make sure, if you haven't sent your quiz to me yet from Monday, make sure and fill your quiz out and send it. I don't think I've gotten anybody's. And if you sent it already, I just haven't received it, so I probably will at some point. Just make sure that you do the quiz from last time. If you have to go look it up again, that's fine. There's no quiz this time because I want you guys to use the rest of the class period to make a good map. Make it awesome and send it to me. Either take a picture and text it or some way. Find some way to get it to me. All right? I'll talk to you guys soon, and we will have class on Friday.